start the Binghamton City Council work session for Monday, August 17th.
The Republic which stands one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Councilman Scaringi.
Present.
Councilman Preston. Councilman Riley.
President, we're having a difficult time hearing you, Grace.
Let me move the microphone closer. Okay. Councilwoman Friedman,
Present.
is that better?
Yes, definitely. Thank you.
Councilman Burns,
Present.
Councilman Strawn, President Scanlon.
Present.
That's 6 here, 1 absent, Strawn.
Okay, we're ready to do it. First of all, before we start the meeting, just a real quick, we're scheduled to talk about the non-binding resolutions, honoring Patrolman Lee Barda and supporting the current Binghamton police officers. I'm going to table it for right now. Councilman Strawn was a part of this beginning. His request, he's asked me to hold on to this until he can be part of the group to discuss it, so we'll discuss it 2 weeks from today. Move right into the agenda. On RL 20-174, Chief Eggleston.
President Scanlon, it's a little bit hard to hear you as well. It's not so much the volume, but for some reason it's echoey.
If this is Jared Cram, if you can hear me at the second floor art gallery, we had switched over the microphone to a omnidirectional for the mayor's public hearing. It may need to be switched on the microphone itself to the circular setting, which is for the entire room.
That might work.
Testing 1, 2, 3, 4.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
It's much
that's better. Thank you.
Is that better? Okay, all right. Okay,
That's my
Chief
fault, I'm sorry.
That's all right, not a problem. Chief Eggleston, go ahead.
Okay, just a resolution for confined space coverage for Matco Electric. They're doing a project at Wilson Hospital and they requested us to provide confined space rescue for them. Something we do on a regular basis.
Questions or comments on this? Thank you, Chief. That was quick and easy. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we're going to move on. We're going to change the agenda right now. We're going to move to RL 20-170 for Verizon for Sean McGee, please.
Oh, that's.
I'm sorry, Jared Cram. I'm sorry.
I think Katie Tyler from Verizon is also a panelist as well. She's joining us as we speak. I think you're on mute, Katie.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
We got you now. Thank you.
Okay. So some of my colleagues were trying to get on, but it doesn't seem like the link is working, but I will do my best to cover everything myself. If you have any questions that I can't cover, I'll be sure to get the answers from them if they're more technical in nature. But I'll just give a brief, just sort of intro on what we're looking to do here. So Verizon has been experiencing heavy increases in traffic on our network in the city of Binghamton. And we currently have just one cell site that covers most of the downtown area. And that's where the majority of the traffic is coming from. So we've received many complaints from residents and workers across the city that they don't have service, or their calls drop, or their speeds are slowed way down. This site is at capacity. And we've been working on a strategy in Binghamton to solve this need for more capacity and better coverage. Part of that overall solution was to install small cells, which is what we're working with the city to build out now. But those small cells, they rely on capable macro cell sites to take on the brunt of the work. So we're proposing to attach our equipment to an existing light pole at NYSEG Stadium to provide that necessary capacity relief to the downtown site, but also to provide improved coverage to your residents and businesses. Okay, so I do have one of my colleagues on, so I just want to make sure they're both able to answer questions if you have them at the end. But okay, so what we're asking the council to do today is really just to authorize the mayor to enter into a lease agreement with Verizon in order to fulfill this need for everyone that lives, works, and plays in the city. This cell site will enhance our network as soon as it's turned on the air, and it'll provide the reliable wireless connectivity that your residents demand and depend on. And I would just like to stress the urgency here. I know that we're looking at unique circumstances here just between COVID and the baseball team's involvement. But your residents are also Verizon customers, and we have a responsibility to provide connectivity to these people. So moving as swiftly as possible is of the utmost importance here, because it does take some time to get to the end goal. So we'd be happy to answer any questions the council might have, and I'll do my best to answer them. I don't know if both of my colleagues are on or just one. Can't really
There
tell.
are questions or comments? Hearing none, I believe we're all set. Thank you very much for coming in.
Okay, thank you, council.
On the RL 20-160, Sean McGee, please. Chris, yeah. We can move to Megan Brackett while we're waiting for Sean to join us. RL 20-157. However you want it, whatever you want to do is fine.
I'll go here so I'm a little bit closer to the mic. Okay, RL 20-157 to start. So this is an extension of an agreement between the city and the school district for school resource officers, or SROs. These are extensions of what council has approved in the past, and they put an SRO in the high school, East Middle School, and West Middle School.
Is there questions or comments on this?
Yes, this is Councilwoman Friedman. I have a question.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. President. I know that just in the packet, what we're actually voting on is just the like the contract, but I was wondering if we have any data surrounding putting SROs in schools, like for example, what effect that has had, if they have prevented any violence from happening or things like that, just because it seems like this is something that I would feel comfortable voting on if I was able to see data.
Can you repeat that last part, Councilwoman Friedman? What specifically were you looking for on the data?
Sure, it's just things like, well, actually, my first question is, how long have SROs been in the schools? I actually don't know.
Sure. So the East Middle School agreement dates back to 2016. I'm sorry, and that's for East and West Middle School. And then from what we can tell, it looks like there's been an SRO in the high school since at least 2004. So we've had an agreement with the district for some time on this.
Okay, thank you. So my follow-up question is, I wonder if we have any data to show and the effect that SROs in schools have had in terms of maybe like disciplinary issues, or if the SROs have like prevented, you know, because I know some people say that SROs are a preventative measure, like have they stopped any violence, you know, have they removed like a firearm from the school? Data points like that. I wonder if that kind of information is available.
I'm not sure, to be honest. I don't have any of that with me tonight, but that's something we can certainly look into for you, and I can talk with the chief about what kind of data they're keeping.
Okay, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure.
Other questions or comments? Councilman Burns?
We're getting that data. We'd love to see the data of how many arrests they've made, if they know, you know, I mean, and do they, are they involved in the disciplinary thing? Like if there's a fight, they break up the fight, they just leave it to the principal at that point, or?
Yeah, so the contracts do, I think, a pretty decent job of spelling out the responsibilities of both district administrators and school staff and the SROs. From what I understand, the SROs, their main function is to really be a resource for both the staff and the faculty that's on site and the students. In talking with some police administration briefly about this, I think a lot of it is about relationship building with the students and acting as a liaison. It's the same officer that's assigned to the school every day, and it's the same officers that have been there. So part of it is building the relationship with the students that are there and their families outside of school.
My daughter's a principal in Bethel. She loves her SRO. She had to fight for it. So, I mean, I like that they're there. I'm just wondering exactly what they.
I'll ask the chief about the data.
Yeah, so.
Sure.
Other questions or comments on this? The only thing I would add to this is I was on the school board for a number of years, and the SROs, they're appreciated by the teachers, by the administration. A lot of students appreciate them. And they're police officers that they sign up for this job. They're not put there, they sign up for it. So it's officers that want to be involved with kids and help kids along. So I'm all for it. That's my position on this. Other questions or comments?
Mr. President.
Yes, Councilman Scrange.
Thank you, Mr. President. I know myself personally, I've spoken to a number of teachers in the Binghamton School District that I represent in the first district. So I know this is probably, well, this is obviously less quantitative, but I think it's also very qualitative. Megan, I don't know, maybe if you could speak to, or if someone on the call can speak to maybe the process of how this comes on and the role that the school district plays as it relates to SROs, because my understanding going back to this, even with what we started with East and West back in 2016, the impetus for this was actually the school district, not just the general idea of SROs in our schools. I mean, I've spoken to staff, teachers, administrators, school board members. I've never heard one Binghamton School District teacher, administrator talk negatively about it. It's always been positive. So if there is not actual quantitative data related to anything that might be preventative, I think qualitatively it's important to know the position of the school district on it. So I wasn't sure maybe if anybody could, or maybe Megan, forgive me, not anybody, but you or someone could speak to that more specifically.
Yes, that's my understanding too, Councilman Scaringi, that this is certainly something that the school district wants and has approached us to work on. So we work with them on this program and to get an SRO officer in each of the 3 schools. If that helps, I hope it does.
Yeah, no, I think it does, because my understanding as well as I believe is it relates to officers that volunteer. Not everyone can just get that. I believe they even go through some sort of in-depth screenings or interviews with teachers and administrators, even in the school district. So there's multiple hands that are touching this as it relates to who actually gets to work with the youth of our community. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Megan.
Sure.
Wait, do you mind hanging there 1 minute? We'll just go through, it'll be quick.
I'm sorry?
Hang in there for 1 minute. We Sean McGee, we'll go back to Sean
Oh,
McGee.
yep,
first.
absolutely.
All right, so let's start RL 20-160, Sean McGee. You there, Mr. McGee?
Yes, I am. Sorry about that. So for this RL, the city received a grant from the Preservation League of New York State. I appeared back, I believe it was in January, and presented that to council with the hope that we would receive grant funding, and we did. And so now I'm hoping that city council will authorize the mayor to accept the funds and enter into contract with Environmental Design and Research to perform the work associated with the grant.
Questions or comments on this? Thank you, Mr. McGee.
No problem. Thank you.
All right, Megan, on to RL 20-161, please.
Okay, and actually, if it's okay, if I could skip around a little bit, because I think it'll make
Go
a
ahead.
little more sense.
Yep.
So if first we could look at RL 20-162. This is it's the second one down in that block that we're on now, but this is funding for the backpack and school supply program. The mayor's office funds each year in partnership with CARES. And CARES is the local nonprofit that works with students and families in the Binghamton City School District. So this funding is actually coming from a pot of money that had originally been allocated to the Cornell Cooperative Extension for summer programming. But because of COVID-19, they weren't able to hold that programming this year. So a portion of that money will go to the backpack program.
What's your read through them all, Megan, then with questions at the end, okay?
Sure, yep. Okay, and then the next one is RL 20-163. This is $20,000 in CARES Act funds that goes directly to CHOW. This is to support child programming in general. They've seen an increased need due to the pandemic, so this will go to them to support that. And then back up to the first RL in this section is 161. This is another $25,000 that's going to CHOW, but this funding is specifically for community meals programs at churches that the city is partnering with. CHOW is simply the administrator on that grant money and this partnership. And that's also CARES Act funding. The last six RLs in this section are community development block grant funds to those churches to support the community meals programs that they run there. And these funds all go to support the capital upgrades. So the purchase of appliances mostly. So new stoves, new freezers to keep the community meals programs going at these 6 partner churches.
Questions or comments from RL 120 through, sorry, let's do it again, from 161 through 169. Questions or comments?
Yes, President Scanlon, this is Councilwoman Riley.
Yes, Councilwoman.
Thank you. I'm glad to see that we are supporting the needs because of the increased need for food and meals in our community. I do have a question, however. So the RLs, as we discussed this afternoon, are coming from the CARES package, right? The COVID money.
So some of them, Councilwoman Riley, are. So the backpack program that I started with, that's just separate CDBG funds. And then for the funds going to the individual churches to support their community meals programs, that's not CARES Act funding. That is CDBG capital money to support those upgrades. So the CARES Act funds is the money that's going to CHOW.
Okay. Okay, now please just explain for for us and those that may be listening, during the hearings with CDAC, we were accepting applications. Did CHOW submit an application for that CARES funding?
They will have if they haven't already. You would have to submit an application in order to receive it.
Okay, so they had a different process from the other organization?
I don't know what you mean by that.
Okay, so they may not have submitted the application for this allocation.
For the CARES Act funds?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they have yet, but they will have to, just like everyone else, in order to receive the funding.
Yeah, Councilwoman Riley, this is Jared. The CARES Act funding as it relates to CHOW for these specific programs is separate from the open application for all nonprofits, but still eligible under the CARES Act funding as it relates specifically to food insecurity.
Okay, that's what I wanted to clarify. So we do have a pocket of money reserved for issues that may come up to support our community. Is that correct?
It's all as part of the same CARES Act nonprofit funding that was approved by City Council. Any expenditures out of that will have to go back to City Council for final approval.
That concludes my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions or comments on these? Thank you, Ms. Brackett.
Thank you.
On RL 20-172, Trish Kepler. 7172, please. What's Trish on there?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, Trish, we can hear you now.
Yep, I'm here.
Okay. Tell us about 171 and 172, please.
Okay, I'm looking to have the two contracts approved. The first one is the Civil Service Employees Association. We asked them for a 1-year extension to their current contract. So it would expire, this 1-year extension on 12/31/2021. And what we asked for was a 0 increase for the year for next year. And they agreed to that. So there's no other changes in the contract, just a 1-year extension with a 0% increase. So that's all they're looking for. So I'm asking for approval of that.
Questions on RL 20-171, please. All right, Trish, tell us about 172, please.
Okay, that's the fire contract. Their contract actually expired at the end of 2019. So we asked for a 1-year extension, so that would expire actually the end of this year. And in their extension, we asked again for a 0% increase for this year. And we also, which they agreed to, we also made some other non-financial changes that we could agree to. So those are also in there. But they're just, there's a handful and they're all non-financial, just to clear up some language. So we thought if we could get it done now, let's get it done. So they agreed to the 0% increase for this year.
All right, questions or comments on RL 20-172, please?
Yes, this is Councilwoman Friedman.
Yes.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was just wondering, is this normally done in 1-year increments?
No, it's not. We were looking, typically most of our contracts are 3 years. We were looking for 1-year extensions. We went out to all the unions and asked for a 0% increase due to financial constraints because of COVID. So we went to all unions. The fire and the CSCA were the only ones who were willing to agree to 1-year extensions with a 0% increase. The police said no, and also Teamsters, blue collar, and supervisors also said no.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
You're welcome.
Other questions or comments? Thank you, Trish.
You're welcome.
Okay, Jared, on the RL 20-158, please.
Good evening. In a similar vein to the SRO program, the city has a Binghamton University liaison officer as part of a partnership with Binghamton University, which we'd like to extend until the next year. This was announced a few years ago, providing a Binghamton resource officer to interface with students, have open office hours, and then be an additional resource during the hours when student-related public safety issues arise, which is typically Thursday, Friday, Saturday, until 4 in the morning. So whether it be helping coordinate with UPD on specific student-centric public safety issues, or assisting the patrol division and other police divisions on response to incidents that involve students, this liaison officer is a position partially funded by the university to work specifically on student-funded, or excuse me, on university-centric issues. So we're asking for an extension in the next year.
Questions on RL 20-158? Jared, tell us about 20-170, please.
Oh, we did that. We did that one, yeah.
Yep.
Oh, never mind. All right, how about RL 20-159, please?
Yes, this is Brian Seacrest. I believe you should have all received an email from Mr. Frank explaining that we were looking forward to next year. They want to create a separate and distinct new attorney's position in our office to ramp up sort of our capabilities for the coming change of administration and some potential changes in our staffing levels in the city. As I believe Ken told you in an email, he plans on retiring, and I believe we want to try to bring in somebody who can be trained a little bit so that when he does that, or when he makes that jump, that we are full staff and don't have a let off in services that we can provide.
Questions or comments on RL 20-159?
Yes,
you,
this is
Brett.
Councilman
Oh.
Friedman.
Sure, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Mr. President. I was just wondering why this is expedited.
I believe it is because we had interviewed, there were 2 individuals, 2 very good candidates. We wanted to make offers to both of them if we could, and because of the timing of your next meeting, we wanted to try to get it expedited so that if they're both still interested, that we could retain both as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Brian. All right, great. Tell us about 20-175.
We also have the ones that we sent out. It's 20-176 and 176.
We got 2 we added here. I apologize. Back up a minute. So these are both for Jared Krim. So Jared, tell us about 20-176, please.
Sure, I'm just bringing up the RLs here. So these 2 RLs are the first in awards as part of the CARES Act funding for financial assistance for nonprofits and businesses. So the RLs, the actual entities receiving the funding is attached. This has to do with paying for overhead costs for nonprofits and businesses that are located within the city of Binghamton. And so we're talking about things like insurance, things like rent, things like utilities and PPE as part of the city's support for nonprofits and local small businesses that have been impacted through COVID-19. So this was the funding programs that have previously been approved by City Council. And you'll see with the budget line, it's specific to the small business assistance and the nonprofit assistance. I do want to note, as part of the nonprofit assistance category, in terms of family planning for South Central New York, we fully want to fund that program. However, it may be subject to an executive order from the Trump administration regarding federal funding for certain family planning activities. Again, we will go with HUD's determination whether they are eligible or not. Again, on the record, it is our preference that they be funded at that amount. We do want to support that nonprofit, but HUD will render a decision on whether they are eligible or not due to recent executive orders. So this includes several small businesses and nonprofits, again, out of the CARES Act funding.
Questions or comments on 20-176?
Yes, President Scanlon, this is Councilwoman Riley.
Go ahead, Councilwoman.
Thank you. Okay, again, Jared, so please clarify for me. These particular recipients submitted an application for this allocation?
That's correct.
Okay, and how were the amounts determined? Did the applicants themselves seek an amount and then based upon the need, it was weighted? Can you tell us a little bit about that process?
Sure. The applicants submitted various costs as associated with that have been impacted through COVID-19. Either they were eligible or not. And what you're seeing in front of you is the maximum eligible costs that can be provided to these businesses or nonprofits. While City Council can authorize the expenditure of funds to, let's use, Binghamton Hots, for example, for $3,000, Binghamton Hots will still need to provide the backup and documentation as it relates to how those costs total $3,000. So in the case of a small business, it may be rental, insurance, and PPE that total a certain amount based on what they're eligible for. The higher number of employees, the more they could potentially be eligible for. So this is simply the authorization to expend the funds, but they still need to provide backup documentation so that it's not just picked out of thin air.
Okay, that's great. Well, based upon what we approved, we see now that the applications and the approved funds are below that budget line, and the deadline has passed, correct?
That's correct.
So now what will happen with the remaining funds in those lines? Are we able to now open another application process? Or,
That would be my hope, specifically with the businesses, 35,000 out of, roughly, I think 210,000. So we would want to see more small businesses apply for that funding. And again, with the nonprofits, based on this competitive round, as well as some other rounds, we'll have to see where things are, but there's certainly additional resources available.
So who would council be able to open or make a recommendation? What is the next best step so that we can service our partners in the community?
In both categories, we will advertise additional rounds of availability for funding for nonprofit assistance. Because the other thing that may happen is that while during this approval process, a nonprofit may be completely eligible, when the final checks are done for a nonprofit that may be receiving $11,000, they are eligible in the end for only $9,000, meaning that there's some additional monies. So there's nothing necessarily the council needs to do except for approval of the final allocations. So it's transparent in front of everyone where the money is going, but certainly promoting that that re-advertising and solicitation of funds specifically for the businesses, which we have, some definite funds for that will help us out.
Perfect. One last question. So now the coordinated entry, I know we allocated or voted, we are voted to approve a substantial amount for 2 entities actually. Those are not under these lines, correct?
That's correct. That's a separate allocation of the CARES Act funding.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
Other questions or comments on 176?
Yes, this is Councilwoman Friedman.
Go ahead, Councilwoman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to clarify the RL 176. It's just this one page that says various nonprofits, correct?
The attachment on RL 177 speaks to both RLs for the businesses and nonprofits.
Okay, so I'm just sorry, I'm pulling them up on my computer now, but I get the reason why I was asking is all I see, and I'm sorry, my computer's a little bit slow, but all I see is just the words various nonprofits. I'm wondering if we will have more information about specifically which nonprofits are applying for the funding.
Sure. So in that email attachment, there was RL 20-176, and then there was RL 20-177. On the second page of 20-177 lists not just the businesses, but also the nonprofits. It's sort of 2 RLs, but 3 pages of documents. The nonprofits that are listed on the second page of RL 20-177 in the email
I see. Okay.
the nonprofits. I have them as one attachment for the 2 RLs.
Okay, so I got confused because I was only looking at 176, but now I see that list. Thank you.
Other questions or comments on this?
President Scanlon, this is Councilwoman Riley again. Just for clarification, Jared, so everyone was, and when we start to solicit our neighbors that are nonprofits and businesses, the list we have is comprehensive and it includes those that may have been denied, or was everyone accepted?
Can you say that one more time? I'm sorry.
So this list is comprehensive and it includes businesses that may have applied but may have been denied for some reason. So we won't go to someone that has submitted because they're not listed here.
You say we won't go to them.
So you asked earlier, the role of the council would be to help solicit and spread the word. Is the list you've provided comprehensive? Meaning, does it include those that may have applied but did not receive funding because of, for example, further documentation was necessary?
No, there are many businesses and nonprofits who have we've received either interest or incomplete applications for that will work on getting involved in the second round of funding.
Thank you. So are we able to have a list of those as well?
I can ask Steve Carson and Paul Nelson on that, but I think in terms of council's approval, it would be the completed applications that are eligible for funding.
No, we're not talking about approval. Remember, you said if once we go to the second round, we could support in terms of helping increase the visibility of the process, dates, and what have you. Mm-hmm. So being fully aware of those that were in progress would help us a bit too. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Councilman Burns.
Yeah, Chair. When do you think that'll open up again, the applications?
I'm not sure, but I would imagine we'd want to get going quickly on the next round. A few weeks.
Thank you.
Jared, you don't need to read 177, right? Just read it. Same thing, right?
Yeah, I addressed that as part of the
Tell us
other.
about 2177, please.
Say that again?
Did you want to read 2177 also?
That's the same program, same attachment. In nonprofits and businesses, it's kind of one package.
All right, thank you, Jared. Appreciate it. Grace, tell us about 20-175, please.
Okay, this is a saleable portion of 124 Washington Street, the Holly Street Hospitality for $1,000. It's the portion, the new restaurant that's opening up. They're building a deck, and it's a very small portion of the sidewalk that they would need.
Questions or comments on this? All right, Grace, read pending legislation for us.
For pending, we have RL 20-154, amend the code of the city of Binghamton, chapter 18, boards, commissions, and committees. Article 6, commissions in architecture and urban design, powers, functions to provide for small wireless aesthetic design standards. RL 20-155, amend the 2020 capital fund budget for the zombie grant salary. And RL 20-156, authorizing the mayor to enter into agreement with First Ward Action Council for the use of FY45 home Choto funding from the rehabilitation of 33 Linden Street and support future affordable housing development projects, the Broome County Land Bank. Yeah.
Thank you, Grace.
And then this is just a reminder, please let us know what RLs you do not want to sponsor. Until we hear otherwise, everybody's going to be a sponsor on them. And let us know early tomorrow morning so we can get the legislation going and printed and sent to all of you.
Thank you, Grace. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to discuss before I adjourn the meeting? Hearing none, then I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Adjourn.